Greetings and blessed day to you once again, people of God. Last time in season 3, part 11, in the partnering God in business, which was segment part 11, we talked about the business material persecutions. In the business material persecutions, we're focusing on the spirit and body afflictions, and we explained the trials, tests, and temptations. But our major focus was on the worship representation. All these factors comprise of all spiritual manifestations, consequences, and circumstances that a partner goes through. And today we want to conclude season 3 with segment part 12 in partnering God in business. And today we want to focus on a subtitle called the greatest wisdom representation. There should be not just the representation of the greatest wealth, the greatest profits, but the greatest wisdom representation in whatever you do, in whatever God allows you to do. So, in season 30, part 12, which is the last and final segment for season 3, we are also going to be looking at the wealth and the inner man satisfaction, the wealth inner man satisfaction. So, meaning that the inner man should be as satisfied as he receives the desired wealth, or else there will be greed in abundance and sorrow. It's part of the subtopic there, the greed in abundance and sorrow. So we are basically going through and explaining the partner's state of mind, heart, and spirit in this season 3 part 12, which is the final segment and chapter. So for us to understand more on this last final version for season 3, which is part 12, let's get into scriptures. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 3. And in the book of Ecclesiastes, the preacher, who is Solomon, begins by saying, "What profit has a man of all his labor which he has taken under the sun?" These words are coming from a man who was not only blessed by God material, but he was also blessed spiritual, and also above all the wealth that you can ever imagine, he was given wisdom. And I learned to realize that there is no other preacher that you can ever want to listen to when he tells you about the profits under the sun, if that preacher is not materially advanced at a convincing level for you to listen to him. And Solomon was not just only a king, but a preacher. Was not only just a preacher, but a very rich man. Is the one that is confessing these words. And it is a surprise to me why one that has been given not only all the wealth that he desired, but has been given the greatest wisdom, starts his writings by confessing that he had failed to see all the profits of all his labor which he had taken under the sun, especially after being blessed by God at the level that he had been blessed. And then he starts to give record examples, saying, "All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full unto the place from whence the rivers come and where they return. And basically, there he is talking about the satisfaction that is desired in a man, because the rivers will always flow and they will never stop, and transpiration will continue happening. But the filling up of a dam represents the satisfaction whereby if one has been given a chance to partner God in business and he has been blessed by God or given a certain portion, he should reach a level of being satisfied at a certain extreme level or at a certain advanced level or at a certain capacity. He should reach a level of being thankful with what he has been given, even though he is still striving to get more. So the representation of rivers that flow into the sea, yet the sea remains not full. It's a representation of unsatisfaction, which is a state of mind that the preacher wants to define in everyone that strives to gather materialization under the sun. All things are full of labor, men cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. This is also another significance of all the labors that a man can ever do. Waking up in the morning, doing all kind of work that you can ever imagine. Planning, not sleeping, having restless nights. Planning so that you may build not only your business, but you may build greater fortunes that represent yourself in future. But all that labor cannot fill up a man, just like the ear is not filled with hearing. It continually desires to continue hearing, nor is the eyesight satisfied with seeing. So unsatisfaction begins and becomes to be a disease that enters a man. So it doesn't matter that you are a partner to God, but if you don't develop to the level of understanding that God has given you something to start with, or God has blessed you at a certain area and you fail to notice it, you may be attacked by this disease that may be difficult to open up your eyes for you to realize what God has given you, what God has added upon what you didn't have. And you are only given the eyes to notice what you don't have. And the preacher then says, I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. This is a test he gave himself to see what could really satisfy his heart and mind in all that he had been given. This is a test that cannot be done by a man that is poor, because if a poor man speaks in this manner, they will say it's a poverty mentality. This is why we had to find the richest man that was blessed in all areas, both in spirit, in wisdom, in the material, all the wealth that you can ever imagine. And then he says, I made me great works. I builded me houses. I planted me vineyards. I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and made servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all of them that were in Jerusalem before me. He was blessed more than anyone in Jerusalem, meaning blessed more than anyone in his nation. I gathered me also silver and gold. On top of all the wealth that he has explained, he also gathered silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of the prophecies. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delight of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great, and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. So this man was blessed beyond measure, not only in the practical, not only in the material, but in the spiritual. And he increased in wealth that was beyond any possession that anyone else around him had. But in his confession, express he wants to express where he lacked, and what he lacked wasn't anything that was material, but what he lacked was something that was invisible, what you can't see. But that thing that you cannot see can bring to waste everything that God has ever given you. Solomon partnered God at the highest level when it comes to sacrifices, what he offered before God. He offered the greatest offerings. He was given also the wisdom that you can never imagine. So I was great, and I increased than all of them that were before me. And he then says, whatsoever my eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy. For my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. This man did not withhold his heart, his eyes, or his mind or heart from any joy, meaning that he was given the capacity and the permission by God to do certain things that will even restrict you to do, certain things that I restrict myself to do. But he did all those things. After being given the material world and given also the God given wisdom, he was given almost everything that most men are restricted. But after being given all this, then he says, I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of the spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Now, people want to understand why this man has failed to see profit under the sun after being given everything that you don't even have a quarter of. A man that has been given things that you're striving for right now. And I'm not saying don't strive for these things, but I want to build the desired maturity that you are supposed to have when you are partnered with God, when you are fighting to gather your finances, when you're fighting to gather material properties. If you're planning to buy a city, go ahead, plan to do that, but you need to have the right mindset, the right state of mind that a partner has. You need to be different from those that are in the world that end up committing suicide, yet they are billionaires. Have you asked yourself why a billionaire, why someone that is filthy rich ends up committing suicide? Why rich people end up divorcing? Have you asked yourself all those things? Have you asked yourself why rich people end up taking sleeping tablets? Have you asked yourself all this? That state of mind is what we are addressing here. These are not the things that you expected to be addressed in partnering God, because you expected us to only measure profits, income, losses. But God addresses all areas from the spirit to the body to the material world. And this is what we have been doing the whole of season 3. And if this is not done, all the wealth that you're gathering will be a waste, even whilst you have it. Why? Because you will not be thankful. You are not going to be given the mind and the spirit to be thankful. You're not going to be given the wisdom to learn and to understand what God has given you. So you need to be given this necessary wisdom that even Solomon did not have, but realized later in his confession. Because this whole passage that we are reading in the book of Ecclesiastes was a confession that the preacher made. Then he said, I looked at all the works that I had done under the sun and realized that there was no profit under the sun. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. Meaning that what he defines there as darkness is being greed, greed in the abundance. What is greed in the abundance? Striving to gather more than what you have, yet not realizing what you already have. Striving to gather more than what you have, not realizing what God has added. Striving to gather more than what you have, yet not being thankful to God. That is not only greed, but evil. Such a man does not realize what God has given him. He only looks at what he doesn't have. Since you started partnering, you have never realized what God has given you. You are only noticing what you don't have. The wise man's the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. The wise man's eyes are inside his head, meaning that your state of mind is the one that has to guide you. But the fool continues to walk in darkness, and I myself perceived also that one event happened to them all. Then said I in my heart, as it happened to the fool, so shall it happen to me. This is the worst case that we don't want you to reach, whereby, as a partner, you end up thinking in the same line with those that are not even partnering God. You end up reasoning as those that are not even blessed by God, those that are not even called by God to think at the capacity of being inspired by the Holy Spirit. Therefore I hated my life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity. He ended up hating his life because of stress, depression, anxiety, having it all but not being satisfied, having restless nights. Because all that you have been given can still be a waste, or can still haunt you if you are not given the wisdom that is desired in spirit by God. There is nothing better for a man that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy in his labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God. That you're supposed to have the strength, you're supposed to be given the capacity, you're supposed to be given that satisfaction, you're supposed to be given that rest in everything that God has given you. If you're not given rest in everything that God has given you, it means you're going to live in stress and depression for the rest of your life. And even if more wealth is added, even if that business continues to give you more profits, you will still remain grieving inside your heart. For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight, a man that he has chosen, a man with wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner giveth travel to gather and heap up. To just gather and heap up is the disease that I'm trying to preach against here. Just gathering and heap up without knowledge and without wisdom. Because we are measuring all this with the greatest wisdom inside the state of the mindset of the partner. So all becomes vanity when everything is not well calculated, everything is not given its time, everything is not given its desired moments before God for the desired satisfaction at that particular time. So, people of God, I want you to understand that it doesn't matter what you're planning right now. You're planning to be the greatest businessman. You're planning to own cities. You're planning to own even this world. God is not against that. You're planning to have all the riches that no one has ever achieved. And even if you are planning to have the greatest riches that even the preacher Solomon confessed here, but what is desired is for your mindset, your heart and spirit to be in the right place. And which is that right place? having the desired satisfaction, peace, and rest in your life, and fighting that greed in abundance and sorrow. And that is the greatest wisdom representation. Until next time, have a blessed day.